Hello, and welcome back to the All Out Soccer podcast for a jam-packed Luis Suarez-related episode straight out of 2014. Myself, Jeremy Goldstein, my co-host, Joseph McBride, we're two football fans talking about soccer. We focus on a fusion of the MLS, the U.S. men's and women's soccer teams, the build-up to the 2026 World Cup. Joe, hola. We have Spanish flair this week because Luis Suarez showed some Spanish flair. How we doing? I should be in my Sounders kit, but I'm not.
Yeah, I'm very good. It's a shame we don't have much to talk about this week, but I'm sure we'll fill the time.
Yeah, just a lot of empty, dead space. There's going to be no waxy monologue today to start off the show. We're going to crack straight into the good stuff. We're going to be talking about the Leagues Cup final. We're going to be talking about the Leagues Cup third place game, yes, and whether the CONCACAF Champions Cup spots should be allocated differently. We're going to give a little U.S. men's national team update and go through the most recent roster and our reaction to which players were selected and which players were not. And we're going to conclude with a nice little U.S. men's national team striker rankings, because the U.S. have not had one designated starting striker for a very, very long time. But, Joe, we got to go right into the good stuff with Seattle versus Miami. Seattle still have a ton of injuries going on their front line. No Rusnak, no Morris. It's De Rosario, the son of Dwayne De Rosario, starting up front, and he scored in the 26th minute on a cross from Jesus Ferreira. Horrible marking for Miami. Maxi Falcone gets pulled. There's no one marking De Rosario in the middle of the box. Ferreira then hits the post in the 40th minute. To cap off a dominant first half for Seattle. And then Miami gets back into the game. You have Luis Suarez kind of looking like Harry Kane, back to goal, distributing to other players. He finds a guy named Lionel Messi in the 50th minute who skies it over the bar. Allende gets another chance in the 60th minute from a similar position as Messi, and he shanks it. Monungo then wins his penalty for Seattle in the 86th minute. That Roldan scores very calmly, and then Paul Rothrock, nicknamed Paulie Primetime, ices the game in the 89th minute to cap off a 3-0 victory for Seattle. They only had 32% possession. They did outshoot Miami. Possession was even in both hands, so you can't even say this was a game state, parking the bus second half situation. But once again, it just illuminates how just weak Miami look in transition. The game was the game. It was interesting enough, but then obviously the antics surrounding it, kind of were the cherry on top.
Yeah, it all kicked off. And it's quite often to see after big games. Even recently in America, we saw it at Chelsea PSG, which was also 3-0 after the final. It all kicked off a little bit, but this was it was a shame. It overshadowed what was a good occasion, a great win for Seattle. And Luis Suarez was, of course, like he always is, at the center of it. He was seen rushing Seattle midfielder Abed Vargas as soon as the whistle ended, and the referee wanted to get out of there. He blew the whistle dead on 90 minutes, no added time, and then it all kicked off. He put him in a headlock. The other sets of players from each team started to get involved. There was pushing, shoving, allegations of punches thrown. And then it got even worse. Suarez had been separated from the main group. He was entering the argument with Seattle staff members. Astari, Miami's goalkeeper, tried to intervene to, cool the situation down. And at this point, this is when Suarez allegedly, although it looks pretty bad, spits in the direction of a 72-year-old staff member. That's, of course, going to be investigated. It's ugly scenes. And I think it's worth saying through this, Messi was removed. And to his credit, he actually stayed out on the field and watched Seattle lift the trophy. So respect where it's due there. But Luis Suarez getting amongst it, couldn't do what he wanted to do in the game. Frustration, Miami didn't lift their third trophy in history. And I think he's probably going to get a bit of discipline action for this.
Just bizarre. Good. There's some pageantry. However, this is now, in my opinion, the culmination of Miami. You can't deny it now, if you're an Inter Miami fan, that you are just the villain of the league. And no one is upset with Messi. It's not an anti-Messi argument. It's an anti-Miami sentiment that you do this against Seattle, who is, again, one of the most revered institutions in the MLS. They don't have this glitz, sort of frowned upon nature that the LA teams have. They've never landed like that, super duper star international DP. Clint Dempsey is an American guy who went there. To do this against Seattle is like the worst team you could have picked to have this incident come against. And it wasn't just the players; it was the fans outside, outside of Lumen Field, clashing with supporters. I'm all for energy in the MLS, passion in the MLS, fans being upset with each other in the MLS. I think that's good. I think that was a little too far, but I am actually enjoying how Miami is now positioned firmly and like unabashedly, unarguably as the villain of the league. And it's so funny that it has nothing to do with people hating Messi. Well, I think everyone is just like, you know what, this guy's really, really good. But they hate this team. And I don't blame them.
Well, they've had their target in their backs. I mean, they're the team that everyone expects to win, and they're the team that everyone wants to beat. So, but I think in terms of the fans fighting, the precedent's set on the field, right? I mean, if that doesn't happen on the field, it's very unlikely as much would happen outside. You know, when you see them clashing, then the fans, you know, the tension rises and they're defending their team, and it all spills over from there. But yeah, no, having a villain team is great, and usually it is the top team. Obviously, we're yet to see that, and I feel like them losing the League's Cup and the amount of expectation on their back, I feel like they have to win the MLS Cup now, otherwise that team is going to be a bit of a failure. But Marty Harden now with Suarez, I mean, MLS has already diverted attention away. They were asked for a statement, and they've deferred to the League's Cup, who did release a statement on the matter, and they said they're reviewing the incidents and they will be, you know, proceeding with disciplinary action shortly, which makes you believe, is Suarez going to be banned in MLS, or will it be kind of a future ban in League's Cup or maybe even CONCACAF competitions?
Yeah, it's going to be messy because how much can MLS even get involved here? It's an interesting situation. If it is the League's Cup, there's a scenario where Luis Suarez isn't playing for Miami next season, and this won't matter if he's potentially back in South America. He should get a punishment. Where that comes from, I don't know, or I don't care, but he should get a punishment. I don't think it should be like the one he got in 2014, where I'm sure you remember he was out for quite a bit of time. It impacted transfer negotiations between Liverpool and Barcelona. For those who are maybe too young to remember, Luis Suarez took a bite out of Giorgio Chiellini at the 2014 World Cup and then feigned as if somehow his teeth were like obstructed and flopped. It's one of the more bizarre things you've ever seen. It is on YouTube. You should see it. I think he was out through September, October for that. Obviously, he just transferred to Barcelona, or was about in the process of securing a move to Barcelona. I think he should miss a few games. I don't think he should miss playoff. I don't think he should just be suspended for the rest of the season, but I think he should miss a few games. Where do you it should be treated like a red card offense, and a 3-game ban for me is fine. Some people might say that's not punitive enough. Where do you fall on this?
Yeah, I mean, the thing is, it's hard to credit Suarez. He has a history, which is going to make it worse. It's going to be, more scrutiny. Which is, as you said about the 2014 incident, the biting incident, that was the third of his career. So it happened back at Ajax. I think it was 2010 before he actually moved to Liverpool. He got banned for 7 games. He did it again at Liverpool against Chelsea. He got banned for 10 games. He actually got banned for, I think it was 9 international matches, and he wasn't allowed any sort of football activity for 4 months after that Chiellini one. But spitting, I guess positively, silver lining isn't in his repertoire. Usually it was on the weekend, allegedly. The last player in MLS to get fined or disciplined for spitting was Hector Herrera. He got given a 3-match ban. That ended up being his last game for Houston, and then he left. So he didn't really serve it anyway, to be honest. But I think it's probably going to be that as a minimum. I don't think they'll do much more than that. I mean, he might get a big fine or whatever, but to him, that's not going to mean too much. But I think he's definitely going to get a few games out, and I think 3 is probably the standard, yeah.
Yeah, and again, it's this balancing act that North American organizations do with Miami, where they don't want to be overly punitive towards them in risk of angering the players. And, these are players with massive, massive egos. And the more punitive you are towards them, they're worried the less likely it is the players will then stay in the league, or that these players' friends who might be interested in joining the MLS are less likely to play. It's like, oh, they always crack down on me. As we saw, obviously, a few months ago with the Lionel Messi ban from not appearing in the MLS All-Star game. There's also an incident with Suarez where I believe he stepped on the foot of a Seattle security director. This is all chaotic. The one other angle I want to take on this is I'm disappointed, kind of from a Miami PR point of view. The only quote really floating around from Javier Mascherano is he said, "I don't have anything to say." You guys were just like sore losers. It just kind of looks like it. You just can't stand losing. This team is always, always arguing with officials. And I get it. It's in the nature of most of the players on their team. They wouldn't be who they are. They wouldn't have reached the point in their careers if it wasn't for the theatrics. Luis Suarez kind of walked so then Diego Costa in the Premier League could run. Just the most exceptional crier to the referee that I've ever seen. Like, he can absolutely make something out of nothing all the time. And it's a skill. It adds value. It adds goals to your team. But when it doesn't work, I don't think the approach is tiptoeing around it. You guys were sore losers. And just say we should have conducted ourselves better, and all credit to Seattle. To credit Seattle, Brian Schmetzer, the longtime coach, said, unfortunately, that's going to take some attention from what was a great Sounders performance. It does. We barely talked about the game. And I just want to say again, Seattle, what a great performance. And I hope they do really well the rest of this season because of that.
Yeah, they're playing great. I think they deserved it. And I believe they scored 16 goals in the League's Cup and only allowed 2, which is incredible. And that's a team that deserves to win any competition.
Yeah, absolutely. There was another match in this competition. The LA Galaxy, having lost in the semifinal, were victorious 2-1 over Orlando in the third place game, therefore clinching a spot in next year's CONCACAF Champions Cup. And this is for a team that sits dead last in the MLS table. Joe, it's weird. Galaxy, is it a good season in the end? Like, how do you feel about this?
It's not, but quite strangely for a third place game, they've managed to save their season by winning it. And they were quite fortunate to win it as well, because Orlando were the much better team for most of the game, in my opinion. It started off great for them. Gabriel Peck finding some space in the right wing, sets up Marco Reus, who had a tap in really just 8 minutes into the game. Second half, Martin Ojeda, he turned on the turn. Great finish, just laced his strike into the goal, tied it up. But then out of nothing, Joseph Pansel, who was playing as kind of a makeshift number 9, found some space in the edge of the box, did a little body feint, bottom corner outside of the area. Great finish, as I said, out of nothing. And that's how the game ended. I mean, Orlando missed some really, really big chances. They'll be kicking themselves for that, especially with the prize at stake. It was a good game. I think Orlando should have won, but Galaxy got the result. It's something they've struggled to do in MLS this season, but when there was a CONCACAF Champions Cup playoff berth, just a berth at spot, then it's huge for them. It does save a season a little bit to be in that competition. MLS seems to have completely got away from them this year, but they've set up next year nicely, so fair play to them.
Yeah, let's just quickly walk through how qualification currently works for the CONCACAF Champions Cup. There were 3 spots available in the League's Cup, 2 to the finalists, 1 to the third place finisher, another spot for the MLS Cup winner, obviously. So Supporter Shield, there's a spot for the Supporter Shield. Then the either best team in the East or West that did not win the Supporter Shield. So that's now we're up to 5. We're up to 5, 3, 4. No, that's 6. Then the 2 next best place finishers in the Shield standings, whether from East or West. And then the U.S. Open Cup champion, which doesn't have to be an MLS team. It could be a USL team or lower. Likely bringing us up to 9 spots from the MLS. And then additionally, there's the Canadian pathways to entries, but those don't really have anything to do with the MLS, but they might include an MLS team. Seattle, by winning the tournament, by winning the League's Cup, are through directly into the round of 16 of the CONCACAF Champions Cup. And some of those early games, it's just a lot of travel. You could get a really tricky Liga MX side, and it's just always better to avoid and go further on into the tournament. I think it's fine. There's like 9 or 10 MLS teams in this every year. The League's Cup was a lot of games and a big time commitment. I think 3 is a fair number, considering almost, how many MLS teams enter into the League's Cup in the first place. I'm fine with it. Orlando could have won. Orlando's probably going to qualify for this anyway. They're probably going to finish pretty high up in the East. In my opinion, they're second or third and have a good chance to qualify anyway. Everyone just needs to calm down. It's just not some LA Galaxy favoritism going on.
No, I think it's It's a weird one when you're kind of getting rewarded for mediocrity or coming third, but at the same time, you got to get the teams in. And I think another reason, just as a, spectators affair watching it, it makes that third place game really big as well. Adds a bit of spice and flair to it. And most third place games you see, even at the World Cup, it's kind of, third or fourth. You haven't made the final. Who really cares? So I think it was good. It brought great competitiveness to that match. I enjoyed it. And they haven't had a good season, but they've saved it. And it's quite nice being able to have that opportunity. It gives them something to play for.
Yeah, I agree. And I think, again, I know it's the big city take. It's better for these tournaments when a team like the Galaxy is in there. For some, they're a villain that you can root against. I also think it's huge for next year because this has been a total wash of a season for the Galaxy. They get Ricky Puig back next season, assuming he is in any decent enough shape following his devastating injury last year, and he still was content with playing for the Galaxy going forward. So they can provide him. Obviously, the team should be a lot better. They can provide him that runway, saying, "Hey, we have more games, more stuff to play for, so that'll be good for them." And another thing, just for the rest of their season, Joseph Paintsil was just called up to the Ghana national team squad, so he will be out for a little bit, missing another MLS game. They're totally done. I know I predicted mid-season that I think they'd sneak into the playoffs. They're still bottom. It's not going to happen. So to have something next year to play for, I think is really, really big for them.
Yeah, 100% agree.
Just looking around the MLS, there were other games going on. Other teams did play. Joe, I know you wanted to give a quick mention to San Diego, who are second in the Supporter Shield race.
Yeah, I mean, a massive game. We've seen with LAFC, LA Galaxy, and San Diego, it's become, a tense one between those three teams. And San Diego came and they won 2-1 away from home. They came from behind. Yeah. You what, sorry?
Against LAFC.
Yeah, sorry. So, yeah, Denny Bwanga opened the scoring, and then the great hit duo of Lozano and Dreyer scoring the goals to completely overturn the tie. It was Son Heung-min's first loss for LAFC, but a big experience for him to, understand the culture and the atmosphere of that game.
Yeah, I think I would love for us to do a deep dive of how to build a expansion team and what this means that an expansion team can come in and just waltz their way into second place. Obviously, they've gotten a bit of luck over the course of the season. That it's gotten there, variety of, rub of the green in some games, but you can't deny that this has immediately been a very good team. Looking around the MLS also, Charlotte have made it 5 wins in a row, and they're in a great position now to comfortably make the playoffs. And this is without Wilfried Zaha they were 2-1 winners away against the New England Revolution. This is without Wilfried Zaha scoring all the goals. This is with Patrick Agyemang, their striker, being sold. This is with Pep Biel being out for a number of months now. He was looking like an MVP candidate at one point earlier in the season. Just an amazing job by English legendary manager Dean Smith and his collection of very interesting players. Just Charlotte are one to watch. We were covering them a lot earlier in the season, and I know we haven't given them as much love recently, but just wanted to shout them out. Hey, if you want to get involved in the conversation, shoot us an email at alloutfootball@reachplc.com or me personally at jeremy.goldstein@reachplc.com. Please engage by subscribing to our show wherever you get your podcast. That's the end of part 1 of this week's All Out Soccer, but stick around for part 2 just after this break. And we're back. Looking at a little U.S. men's national team. This roster is bizarre. I don't understand it. There's a lot of inconsistency in what Mauricio Pochettino has said and who he has selected. I don't know if it's favoritism. I don't know if he's proving a point. I don't know if he's just we're obsessed with the MLS, but he might be even more. It may be too much. What was your reaction to seeing this? As in a second, we're going to break through some of these names.
It was just, I think you said it right. Inconsistent, weird. I mean, there's some players you'd obviously expect to be in there. Some exciting call-ups for players that deserve to be in there. But then just some omissions that, injury aside, is really, really confusing to me. And as you said, I'm sure we'll get into it now.
Let's just quickly go position group by position group. We're going to start in goal, where it's Matt Freese, Roman Celentano of FC Cincinnati, his first call-up, and Jonathan Klinsmann, what the hell, who's playing at Cesena in Serie B. They've all made the team over Matt Turner, now playing in the MLS for the New England Revolution, which was the whole thing was Matt Turner just needed to get game time, and now he is, and he's on the team. Zach Steffen, who's been fine this year. Patrick Schulte for the Crew, who's been fine this year. I don't know. Fine. Matt Freese is the U.S.'s goalie now, but like, I just don't get the process that's led to this point.
No, it's a pretty brutal drop for Matt Turner. I mean, I understand him losing his place in goal, but to not be in the squad at all is a bit ruthless. And I just can't tell if this is the way he's going or if this is an experiment again to kind of get through as many players as possible before making those selections for the World Cup next year. But yeah, I mean, it's messing with everyone.
So many camps. You only have so many camps. It's not like it's 2022 right now. It's 2025.
I think the defense is okay as well. It's just more further forward. I'm confused.
Yeah, the defense is fine. I'm happy Noaki Banks from Augsburg is in the team. I think that's a really exciting one. Tristan Blackman is in the team, who Tom Smoller alluded to prematurely. Just to quickly say one or two names that I'm a little disappointed didn't make it. Mark McKenzie, who's 22 caps, currently at Toulouse. He's been around this team forever. He's not in the team. That's disappointing. Joe Scaley was really upset he didn't make the squad and actually released a statement saying he was disappointed. He's starting every week for Borussia Mönchengladbach. He's not in the team. Christopher Lund, who was the starting left back for a long time, or 7 caps. He started for the U.S. a bunch. He just transferred to FC Cologne in the Bundesliga. He didn't get called up. But generally, yes, I think the defense is fine. And further forward, there are real questions. Chris Richards is in the team. Honestly, I think he's one of the best players on this team.
Yeah, and I know we're getting some players, but got a clean sheet for Palace at the weekend, and Mark Guay is now staying, so they're going to form a good partnership. But yeah, it's just a midfield. I mean, there's some omissions through injury. These are further forward, as we were saying. Like Robinson, the defender for Fulham's just come back, so a bit premature for him. The striking duo of Balogun and Pepe just come back. Balogun also scored at the weekend, but again, a bit premature. But you've got Weston McKennie, you've got Yunus Musa, you've got Johnny Cardozo, all not in the squad. And Pochettino said that McKennie's was more that he hasn't been able to nail down, a main role at Juventus. I think he played 1 minute of the weekend, and he wants them to settle before playing. And it's not a great confidence boost to give someone. Musa's an interesting one. He's just moved to Atalanta. Cardozo obviously playing for Atleti now, but to not include them at all, I think is just bizarre.
It just makes this a wash. It makes the whole thing a wash. They just need to be there. And again, there's a lot of players who aren't in this team because of transfers-related stuff. Malik Tillman, one of them, who actually scored on his Bayer Leverkusen debut over the weekend, betting in with the new team. Cardozo also betting in with the new team at Atletico Madrid. We don't know if that's played a part in them turning down this camp. Obviously, if they were playing World Cup qualifiers, I'm sure they would be there, but that's a different story. I'm just disappointed in the messaging. McKennie just needs to be there. If he's going to play at the World Cup, are we pretending Weston McKennie isn't going to play at the World Cup and this is like a punitive thing because he's like still staying at Juventus and being used in 100 different roles? It doesn't matter what roles he's playing for Juventus. He's going to start for the U.S. men's national team, and he needs to be there playing with players who see him in this position. And if Poch hasn't figured out where McKennie is playing at this point, he hasn't just walked through the door last week. What else are you doing? Like, McKennie is going to play for the U.S. at the next World Cup. He should be starting every game. And if you don't have him in camp and can't figure out where to play him, I don't know what to tell you, because the next coach who comes in after Poch is going to play McKennie. So it's just like, what's going on? That's just like, it's really, really stupid for me. Just to be like, you're experimenting, fine. You should experiment around the margins. But you need the spine and the foundation there to know what you're experimenting around. You're not experimenting with the entire house of cards. You need to have some foundation there to begin with, and it can't just be Christian Pulisic, who is back in the team, by the way. That's my anti-Poch rant.
Yeah, the thing that confused me is he also mentioned that he played the Club World Cup and that he was giving him, extra rest. And it's like the season started. He hasn't even been playing that much for Juventus. It was a very risky way to go, given the whole Pulisic scandal this summer. He basically kind of explained the same situation again as to why he left McKennie out. But I actually really expect Pulisic to score during one of these games, and it's going to be a big thing. I'm sure it'll be all fine. He'll score, it'll be all smiles, and it'll kind of put that to bed. But that's going to be one to watch for sure.
It is going to be one to watch. Just bizarre. And we're going to move into a conversation now about some of our forward players up front. I also want to shout out Balogun wasn't in the initial team. He was then included after an injury swab. Alejandro Sendejas is also in the team. I don't know what year it is looking at that. But here he is and around. Yeah, weird. But the strikers, just to confirm, the strikers in the team and the strikers not in the team. Just looking at it currently. In the team, we have Josh Sargent at Norwich, Florian Balogun at Monaco, Damian Downs, recently transferred to Southampton, a player we like, but, he's a bit green. Players who didn't make the team include Patrick Agyemang, who's currently injured, just transferred to Derby County, Brian White, Vancouver Whitecaps, Haji Wright with Coventry City. It's suspected it's injury, but I think that's not the full story here. Brendan Vasquez is injured. He's at Austin FC. I'm just looking at recent players who have received calls for the U.S. men's national team. Jesus Ferreira, who's been around this picture forever, he didn't make it. And Ricardo Pepi isn't in the team. With that, let's segue into our top 5 American strikers. Joe, the ever-old question, do we want to go you do yours, I do mine, or we do 5, 4, 3, 2, 1?
Let's mix it up. Let's just go through them. I think cut to the chase. Do you want me to go first or you?
You can go first. I'm going to predict we have 4 out of the 5 same names.
Okay. Yeah, I'd say that's probably accurate. I was a bit torn because I've picked my number 1 based off form at the moment. The rest of them more so, kind of legacy or who I think is the better player or will be better by the time it's relevant. Josh Sargent's in at number 1. I mean, he hasn't missed a beat this season. He's played 4 games. He's scored 5 goals. Amazing brace at the weekend against Blackburn. A second goal I particularly would urge you to go and check out if you haven't already. But he comes in at number 1. Second for me is Balogun, just because I think he's kind of that big game player. I think Pepi is close, which is why I've put him third. Yeah. Brian White goes 4th, and Haji Wright goes 5th for me. I think it's actually really harsh he's been left out of this roster. I mean, he scored 4 goals in 4 games at Coventry, also scored at the weekend. And Damian Downs, I rate. He's obviously at Southampton, as you said, hasn't scored yet, but I think it's harsh that he got missed out, to be fair.
Talk to me about Brian White. He's the one player I don't have.
I just like him. I think he's in the prime of his career right now. And I think he can be a really useful asset for the States. I don't think he'd be a starting striker, but I just rate him and how he's played this season and the back end of last season. I think he's certainly in amongst there just in terms of, consistency and everything like that. So, I mean, it might be a bit of an interesting inclusion, but we all know what I think about Vancouver. Big fan of them this year.
Yep. That was the one I didn't have. That was the one I knew you had and I didn't from beforehand. So I feel good about that. All right. I was right. 4 out of 5. I'll run through mine and then we'll break down some things we disagree on. Number 1, I have Josh Sargent. He's in great form, but it's not just the form he's in right now. I think he's one of truly the most well-rounded forwards in the entire, I was going to say, in England, honestly. It's not just his goals. Obviously, he's hovered around the 15 mark the last few seasons. He's already at 5 in the league this year. His pass completion percentage ranks in the 90th percentile, according to FBref, amongst Europe's top 10 leagues. I think he's a really tidy player. I think he's now knows what it means to be a fulcrum of a team. And if Pochettino wants to commit to him being the fulcrum, I have no problem with that. Just commit to the bit. Number 2, I have Ricardo Pepi, because I think he is the perfect change of pace to Sargent. He is young, tall, fast, physical, good at literally everything. He's just still very raw, and he's still very young. He scored goals for the U.S. when he was 18, 19, 100 years ago. He's still in his early 20s. He's number 2 for me. Haji Wright is number 3. He's a guy who scores goals in bunches. When the attack is flowing, he's free-flowing. He's looked great for Coventry City this year. He's going to start. They're going to get promoted. Shout out Frank Lampard. Number 4, I have Florian Balogun. Obviously, he had that 20-plus goal season a few years ago at Reims in Ligue 1. Still in Ligue 1, still a good scorer. Injury concerns are the reason he's down to 4 for me. But that 2023 period when he was betting into the U.S. men's national team, wow, he looked really good. It's just like he just hasn't gotten that chance, so that's why I'm at 4. And number 5, I have the biggest U.S. men's national team striking prospect, even though he is 24, and that's Patrick Agyemang. Because of his size, because of his strength, because of his speed, he projects as a top-level center forward in a way that Brian White, who's 29, does not project. This is a projection. And in international football, I want someone who's a little better of a physical profile, especially against a more competitive team. That's my top 5.
No, but I mean, I hear you. It's just opinions, I guess. Recently, our lists have been non-controversial. We've been agreeing too much, so we need to find something that we're going to clash on at some point.
I don't know. Is like Pepe too insane? Like honestly, I was talking myself into Balogun just saying that.
No, I think Pepe's got such a high ceiling. I think he's going to be a good player. He just needs to stay fit. He needs to be able to prove that as well. And especially during a tournament at the end of a big season, he's just got to stay fit.
He was scoring goals in the Champions League last year. He looked really, really good that first half of the season. And now he lost his starting spot for PSV. He did come on in the second half. They actually lost 2-0 to a promoted side over the weekend. If he's not starting this year and they sold De Jong, oof, that sucks because he needs to be playing. But, if he's the number 2 for the U.S. men's national team and is the chaos agent off the bench who comes on in the 70th minute, if you need something to happen, I think that's an okay result.
Yeah, I agree. And it's just such a good time for the strikers right now. I'm excited I'm not an American, but everyone seems to be firing. And I feel like if this kind of consistency and momentum can keep going into the World Cup, it's just going to be a free-for-all. And it's a nice problem to have for Pochettino.
It is a nice problem to have for Pochettino. He just needs to get a grip and just get a grip, man. Just think about the World Cup itself. This is no more betting. You're not betting in anyone. Just think about how do I want to play next summer? Who could offer me a job in a very specific role and bring in players you think, and I'm going to see if they can play in this role. But you need the spine, and you can't ignore the spine. This is the one camp where I'm saying, there's a lot of stuff in flux because of the transfer window, and it's fine. If the next camp is not serious, I'm going to be seriously disappointed.
Yeah, I mean, how do you think the US is going to do? So just South Korea and Japan, like, quick preview.
How do I think the US are going to do?
Win both?
No, I think it's just so hard to talk about international games when it's just like not even the concept of an idea of how the US are going to line up. You know what I mean? But those Asian nations are very, very strong. So I honestly think the US are going to lose one, draw the other. As long as they don't get blown out. They did get blown out by Japan a few years ago before the 2022 World Cup. That's fine with me.
I think that'd be fine. But if not, that roster selection is going to have some questions raised towards Pochettino.
Yep. And that just about wraps it up for this week's All Out Soccer. He's been Joseph McBride. I've been Jeremy Goldstein. We can hope you can catch us again on the next episode. And as Thomas Muller would say, Auf Wiedersehen.